Hi, hello and welcome back. This is Dr. Srivani Sesham presenting to you Ecological Succession. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon for further notifications. Now let us get into the topic. What is ecological succession? Why does succession occur? First, let's see who coined the term succession. The term ecological succession was first given by Ragnar Hult in 1885, and different people have variously defined ecological succession. Ecological succession is the process by which mix of species and habitat in an area changes over time. There will be a gradual change in a species of a particular area with respect to environmental changes. The gradual and predictable changes in species composition of a given area are called ecological succession. Ecological succession is the process by which the structure of a biological community evolves over time. The communities replace one another until a climax community like a forest is reached, or until disturbance like a forest fire or volcanic eruption occur. Ecological succession occurs due to changes in the physical environment and population of a species. Succession can also occur when the conditions of an environment suddenly and drastically change. For example, forest fires, storms of wind, human activities all greatly alter the environmental conditions. Let us now see what are the causes of succession. There are three major causes of succession. The first one being initiating cause, which includes biotic and climatic factors such as wind, fire, natural disasters, erosions, etc., which destroy the existing populations of the area. The second cause being excesses, continuous processes such as aggregation, competition, migration, etc., result in a series of changes in the soil structure of the area, change of the soil nutrients, accumulation of the organic matter are some of the common changes. The third factor being the stabilizing cause. It includes climatic factors, fertility of land and availability of minerals in abundance, resulting in stabilizing the community. Now let us see the sequence of the occurrence of the succession pattern. Okay, how does succession occur is first the initiation or the first formed community is named as a pioneer stage. Okay, and then as each community replaces the other, the first replacing community after the pioneer stage is named as seral stage 1, then seral stage 2, 3, 4 and thereof until a final climax community is reached. Next, let us see the patterns of succession. There are major two types are the major ones, but we still have other types too. The major types are the primary succession and the secondary succession. So now let us see what is primary succession. How does it occur? So primary succession happens when a new patch of land is created or exposed for the first time. That means where no life previously existed. It's a bare rock or a bare area where no life previously existed. If succession begins from such a surface, it is called as primary succession. So this can happen, for example, when lava cools and creates new rocks, or when a glacier retreats and exposes rocks without any soil. During primary succession, organisms must start from scratch. First, lichens might attach themselves to rocks, and a few small plants able to live without much soil might appear. These are known as the pioneer species. Then gradually the decomposition of these plants contributes to soil formation, and more larger plants begin to colonize the area. when enough soil forms and nutrients become available, so that a climax community like a forest is formed. If the site is disturbed after this point, that is after reaching the climax point, then secondary succession occurs. That means primary succession occurs on such a surface where no life previously existed. Once the succession reaches its climax state due to any larger disturbance, okay, if the community is disturbed, then secondary succession occurs in that position. Now let us see the secondary succession. How secondary succession happens? As I have already told you, it happens after the climax of the primary succession is disturbed. That means the soil or the other nutrients required for the life to begin are present on that surface. So secondary succession happens when a climax community or intermediate community is impacted by a disturbance. Then this restarts the cycle of succession, but not back to the beginning. Soil and nutrients are already present. That is why this is called as secondary succession. If it is back to the beginning where no soil or nutrients are present, then it is primary succession. For example, after forest fire that kills all the mature trees on a particular landscape, grasses might grow, followed by shrubs and a variety of tree species, until eventually the community that existed before the fire is present again, as we can see in this diagrammatic representation, where the pioneer species followed by the intermediate species and finally the climax community. Next, let us see the other patterns of succession. The major patterns are the primary and the secondary. What are the other patterns of succession? The other patterns of succession are the cyclic succession and autogenic succession, allogenic succession, autotrophic succession, heterotrophic, progressive and retrogressive. So cyclic succession is which happens in between the succession which is happening from the pioneer to the climax, and when the climax at that stage, if a major disturbance happens, then it will lead to other type, that is the secondary succession. But cyclic is if a small disturbance happens in the in between stages, okay, then the succession will continue from there again. That is called as the cyclic succession. Autogenic succession is self generated, when the organisms that are present at some of the stages cause or lead to changes in the environmental conditions existing there, then it will lead to autogenic succession. Like that, we have different patterns of succession, and then we have autotrophic succession and heterotrophic succession. As the name goes, if the predominant species are the autotrophs, then that type of succession is autotrophic succession, and if the predominant species are the heterotrophs, then it is heterotrophic succession. Then we have progressive and retrogressive successions also. So the progressive succession is with increase in the biomass, diversity and structural complexity through time, usually with a trend towards a more moderate site happens, then it is progressive succession. What is retrogressive is quite antagonistic to progressive. So succession with a decrease in diversity, then biomass, and often with the site becoming more dry or wet, then it is retrogressive succession. So we have, even I forgot to mention about the allogenic succession in between. So when factors external to plants cause succession, okay, it is called as allogenic. Allogenic succession may be due to major environmental changes beyond the control of the indigenous organisms. If the factors influencing are external, they are from the outside, not from the inner core of the succession organisms, then it is called as allogenic. The external factors influencing the succession pattern, then it is called as allogenic succession. Now, what is a climax community? All types of successions, they culminate in a climax community. So, it is the end point of succession of a particular climate or geography. An ecological community in which populations of plants or animals remain stable and exist in balance with each other and their environment. A climax community is the final stage of succession, remaining relatively unchanged until destroyed by an event such as fire or human interference. The communities or species are the ones that are more adapted to stable and predictable environments and will remain unchanged in terms of species composition for as long as the site remains undisturbed. Now, let us see what are the stages of succession. There are 5 such stages of succession, beginning with the first stage, nudation. As we have seen, the primary succession begins on a surface where previously no life existed. So, it is the initial stage where a new bare area is formed, which could be due to several factors such as the volcanic eruptions, floods, landslides or erosions. This region is devoid of life and is ready for new species to inhabit it. Now, the second stage is the invasion. Invasion, when the surface is ready for the life to inhabit it, naturally the life will invade it. So, in the invasion, the introduction of life into the previously bare area happens and the reproductive bodies of different organisms find their way into the newly formed area. So, they will form the pioneering species. Now, third stage being the competition and co-action. With more and more species starting their population in that area, naturally the competition for food, shelter and other resources intensifies, which we can also call it as struggle for existence, isn't it? Whenever there is competition, naturally struggle for existence takes place and the survival of the fittest only happens. Then the next stage is the reaction. With the appearance of different species, now modifications happen in the soil composition, then water availability, local temperature of that area, and these changes influence the type of species that can survive in that area. So, after competition and co-action where the struggle for existence has occurred, naturally the survival of the fittest takes place. That is what is the reaction. Then finally, the fifth stage is the climax. Already in the previous slide also I explained what climax is. Climax is the stable community which will prevail for longer time until a larger disturbance happens. So, this is the final community and it is also referred to as the stable community. Now, let us see what are the different types of seers. Here we have the first one being the xeroseer or the xerarch succession, hydrarch succession or hydroseer, then lithoseer. We also have samoseer, then holoseer, senile and eoseer are the different types of seers. The first one, xeroseer or xerarch succession, as we can make out from the term itself, it is succession on dry habitats, whereas hydrarch succession or hydroseer, it is the succession which occurs in the area of fresh waters. Then lithoseer, succession that begins on newly exposed rock surface as a result of either it can be glacial retreat or volcanic eruptions. Then this bare rocks which get exposed, on the surface of which also the succession can begin. Then we have samoseer, that is succession which happens on the sand dune systems or that begins on a newly exposed coastal sand, that is the sand dunes where succession can begin. Then we have holosphere, that is the succession in saline water environment, and the senile, and then last one is the eosphere. Eosphere is the total development of a particular vegetation such as ferns or conifers, etc., throughout a geological period. Okay, then the succession is happening throughout a geological period by the growth of certain flora and fauna. That type of succession is termed as eosphere. Then let us see the significance of ecological succession. The significance is it shows the way of the sequence of biotic succession, and then ecologists can immediately recognize the several stages in a biotic community of a particular area. So depending or assessing or analyzing the type of community that is existing in that particular area, we can the scientists can decide on which several stage it is in and which type of succession is taking place in that particular area. Then succession helps in knowing information about the techniques that can be used during reforestation and afforestation. By having a clear understanding of the biotic succession, we can prevent the growth of superior community or species in an area and can control the growth of more than one species. By study of succession of a particular area, we can prevent siltation and protect the dams and also occurrence of biotic succession. Now let us see two examples of succession, and then we'll conclude the ecological succession. The first example is hydrosphere, the succession which happens in fresh water. As you can see here, the trend of succession, first it happens in the waters where only phytoplanktons are existing, and these phytoplanktons are fed by the zooplanktons, and both phyto and zooplanktons are fed by the small fishes and all, which emerge as the next stage. So after the phytoplanktons, we can see here the presence of the rooted submerged stage where Vallisneria, Hydrilla, etc. such plants arise, and then slowly to the edges of the pond we can see the rooted floating stage also being present. As the soil is being formed, slowly the plants they gain the roots, and some of the plants will be floating on the surface. And then we have the reed swamp stage followed by the marsh meadow stage. As it is reaching to the marsh meadow stage, slowly the soil will be increasing and slowly the environment will shift from water to the terrestrial environment. As the waters are lessened with the increasing of the soil in the pond, naturally the terrestrial environment will take its position there, and the woodland stage will arise, that is small shrubs or trees will start growing there. Slowly a forest community will develop, and it will result in the terrestrial ecosystem being developed there, and this forest community is a climax community which will remain for many years to come until a large disturbance like a forest fire or any other disturbance happens. This particular community will remain for many more years. That is an example for hydrosphere. And then next example is that of the xerosphere. Xerosphere, as I've told you while explaining the different types of spheres, if the succession is occurring on a bare rock, okay, on a dry area, then it is called as xerosphere. So here you can see the first stage is the lichen stage. Due to great exposure to sun and extreme deficiency of water, okay, the first pioneers on the bare rock are a few simple organisms. And then as soon as the soil is formed by the activity of the crustose lichens, higher forms of lichens like foliose lichens appear. These again are followed by the large leafy structured plants, then which overlap the crustose lichens and cause their gradual death and decay. So the next stage will be the moss stage. So in the moss stage, with the accumulation of dust and humus in small quantities, the environment is altered enough to allow the establishment of secondary communities. Then the animals might become more varied, small spiders and springtails, all these they become slowly, they establish in that particular stage. Then followed by the herbaceous stage, as the mosses become more extensive. Thank you for watching my video, and please do share, like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you will get further notifications.